Welcome to Weld.com. We've been doing a series of exercises on how to get started. We're increasing the difficulty a little bit. We ran through a simple fillet weld, multiple pass. We did it right, we did it wrong. We showed what happened when you cook the material, too much heat, too long of an arc. We did the same thing on some lap welds and how much you can actually use the material, even welding on edge. This was a part that we did, and we showed a weld with adding no filler wire, adding wire in this section here, and then blowing it up, and too much heat, too long of an arc, and we kind of cooked it a little bit. To glance at it, it's just wide, but I know it's cooked because I welded it and I saw the things that were happening, got a little porosity internal. And then we looked at the back side, and we get no melt through on the low amp, no wire, and we got some decent controlled melt through here, and definitely melting through, but you know, I don't want to go there. It's just too much. So we lost control, I should say. Now I want to continue on. I think I mentioned in that last video that we just grab one more piece and keep right on going, and that's what I do. Now I'm cleaning these. I'm using a Walter 1/4-inch disc, and I'm just really laying this down and flat sanding it, and we're talking 15 seconds. It doesn't take long at all. I'm not trying to do anything other than cut this mill scale off. The edge is clean because it's sheared. It's still sharp too. And the same thing on this one here, and I did both sides. So this one, instead of putting this up exact corner to corner, we're going to add a little bit of gap. We're going to add about 1/16 of gap to increase the difficulty. Now, I'm not going to be able to tack this up without filler wire, and I'm not going to be able to weld it without filler wire with that gap. So I'm having to do something here to take control of the gap, add the wire, and control the pool front side and back side. So let me get my safety glasses and hood on, and I'll be right back. I'm going to use an Everlast. We've been running off this Everlast 200 DV meaning dual voltage, and I've been running off the 110 volt input side. It only gives me 125 amps for output, and that's plenty for what we're doing. Again, this is just straight up foot pedal 2T. We're not using any pulse yet. We'll get to those videos here. But again, nice little machine, straight up features, easy to adjust, read. When I tack this up for gap, I am not going to be able to do this without adding filler wire. Okay, so I am going to, what I normally do, little trick, is start out right here on the edge, and I'm going to put a little dot down and bring it out just a little bit, and then I'm going to leave that. So here we go. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So we went right out on the very corner. If I needed a little help, I'd add something on this side for a counterweight to keep that from getting knocked over. Here's my trusty little counterweight right here. Hello, fire brick. How are you doing this evening? Okay, I'm not going to try to hold this straight. I'm going to lean this a little bit just so I can kind of hang on to it. Wow, that's a bunch of gap. I can, while this is hot, I can move this plate in and out. Let me see what we can get going here, but I just want to tack this up with a little bit of gap. Well, I got that right at the right temperature, and it jumped on me, and then I had to heat it back up. So now, you know, we're not straight at all, but I'm able to pivot this, and I can move that around. I can gauge it this way and get it straight up and down. Said I could. And then I can look at it this way and make sure my gap is straight. Or if I wanted to put more gap up here toward my end, I could. I want to keep it pretty consistent. Okay, so now we'll tack this end here. Oh, I like that little pop. Like that little pop right there. Whenever I'm tacking something like this, I like to start out, you know, initiate the arc on the very corner, get my wire position, increase the amperage, bring it over and bridge the two of them together. Again, I'm not trying to blow this up. I could easily blow this corner up. Since I move this around quite a bit, I'm going to visually check this, make sure it's not cracked, and I could even add to it to make sure that it doesn't move. How about we do that? I'm just going to beef that up just a little bit. This is kind of wide. I'm swimming in here. I accidentally got that a little wider than I wanted to. It's okay. I told you we were going to do this for exercise, for difficulty and control. So here we go. We are going to start out. I don't know that I could even demonstrate how to do this wrong, because it would just immediately turn out wrong. I doubt seriously I could do anything with this. I don't even know why I'd want to try, but if we tried to do this without filler wire, that'd be a huge mistake. It might accidentally bridge across. I'd expect it to be sunk in. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to manipulate the arc, weld pool, the filler wire. So I want to get over here and get situated so that, you know, there's a lot of times the old fire brick comes in handy just for resting your wrist on, except it's a little bit too tall. Yeah, let's use it. So I want to get my wire in position here where I can control this. The next thing I really need to do is control my amperage. I'm not worried about my angle too much. I worry about my wrist get to bouncing around here like I'm getting pulled over by the law. But again, you know, I've set the machine up as high as it'll go on this particular output for 110 volt. I'm not going to use it all. I already know that. So I'm just feathering the foot control, and that's another good exercise. So let's see what we get. We'll start an arc, and we'll see what we can do to fill this in. I'm not trying to fill this in one pass. I want to create something where I do two passes here. So let's experiment. I'm doing this with a 1/16 wire. I could probably immediately go to a 332. But again, I'm forcing myself way down here on the low end to try to get the tiniest weld in here. Kind of got a little dab keyhole method. Boy, I started a minute ago. I looked like an addled schoolboy. I was bouncing all over the place, and it was horrible. I changed tungsten, got rid of my trusty fire brick, bad brick, and I came back in, and I was a little more comfortable just putting and I could move better too, so that was my bad. Should have known better. I expect this to be melted through on the back. I mean, I'm kind of watching this leading edge, and it's cupping out. It's going to have a fair amount of penetration, melt through, and that's fine. Now, I would go back in here. I've left this whole thing. This is just like a root pass down inside here, and I have left myself where I can get in here and fill this top up. So let's go ahead and look at our surprise on the back side. It looks kind of, it's got a strange color to it, and I can tell you that that's from pulling the wire out of the pool. It looks kind of dark and strange gray looking, and that's fine, but it's melted. I'm real certain that that's just on the top surface of the bead back here. So now, since we did that and we have that color, let's experiment. Let's do what we call kind of a lay wire, where I leave the wire on the leading edge. Now, some of you are going to try to cheat and just melt the wire, and that's not what you want to do. You want to put the wire on the leading edge of the pool and control the wire all the way. So let's see what we can get out of that process. I'll make a separation in these two beads. The wire is way down low on the leading edge, and I am just kind of tracing back and forth up on the top edge. So I'm like way back in the pool. I expect this to look better. This is wider and flatter, and that's just another way of doing it. Do I like it? No. I kind of like this method better, but I'm going to experiment with something beyond that. I'm going to go get a little bit bigger wire. The bigger wire is going to keep the pool a little cooler. I'm going to do the exact same technique. Now let's turn this over and see what we have. So now we have just a bit wider of a pool, but it looks better as far as the color. It still has the deposits back here. This material was clean on these edges, so that's just the nature of the end products of deoxidizers and the carbon steel. I am going to get a, let me go get a piece of 3/32 filler wire. I'll be right back. So I started out and I used the 1/16 wire, and I was dabbing low in here, and we've left this weld way shallow. I used the 16th wire, left it in the weld pool on the leading edge, and kind of traced back and forth. And then we have these fused completely across. Again, it's flat. Now I just want to do the same thing with a 3/32 wire at about the same amperage and see if it'll round up just a little bit. So here we go. Little freehand lace technique here. Leaving that wire right on the front edge. Letting it run off on its own. Keeping the amperage lower. I'm going to go cool this off and buff it so we might be able to see it a little better. So a little recap here. I buffed these off with a pedestal wire wheel. And the first one we had was, you can see these are unfinished edges out here. We have a weld way deep. We welded these with a little bit of gap, 1/16 wire to start with here. We could go back with the 1/16 wire and fill this up. Again, it's just practice edge control, same width. We're not trying to blow the material up, so we're regulating our amperage, watching the weld pool, consistent arc length, and torch angle. The second one, we left the 16th wire on the leading edge and traced back and forth. I didn't particularly care for that. I just felt like it was too flat. And we didn't look at the back side of the last one we did to see what we had for melt through. But I used a 3/32 wire down here, and we have about the same melt through and about the same color. I'm not too worried about color. Yeah, we have some of the silicon and some glass on the back side, and it's a little gray. I can wire wheel that off. We can go back and use this side. If we clean this off, we can weld by it, either with MIG or TIG, if we cleaned it up correctly. So I kind of like the last one, using the bigger 3/32 wire. I don't think I would be interested in doing it with an 1/8" wire. I just think it's, you know, it's too much mass, too much molten weld pool. So again, these exercises are for practice and control. And again, we could go back and do edge welds all over. Wherever there's an edge, we could practice doing the edge weld. I only have 3 pieces of 1/8", 2" by 6" stock, and I've done a lot of different types of demonstrations here. So I hope this helps. If there's anything that we can help you with when you're starting out and you're practicing, let us know. We'll try to answer all your questions. Thanks for watching Weld.com.